Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Killigan Circumstances. I'm your host, Marian Angeles, and this is our show. Hello, everybody. This is a new episode, a new day, and hopefully a new perspective. So, for today, we're going to be talking about the Prime Video movie Herself. Now, a little bit of background on this movie. This movie actually debuted at the Sundance Film Festival. I think it was either 2019 or 2020. I'm not 100% sure. But this show got amazing critical acclaims for its honesty and its rawness to the topics that we're going to be discussing today. So the summary is that the single mom Sandra and her two daughters are struggling to get by. And when the housing system that she is in, where she gets rent allowance, refuses to help her build her own home, she decides to undertake that herself and build her own home under $35,000. I think that's the number that was said in the movie. And she gets help from a community of people and from new friends, and she Sandra soon rediscovers herself. Now, some more background on what actually happens in this movie. Sandra, she is essentially abused by her ex-husband. And in the beginning of the movie, she uses this code word, Black Widow. And she tells her daughter that if she ever says the code word Black Widow, that is when she will run out and go get some help for her. And she tells her daughter Black Widow and she runs away right as her husband comes in and starts to beat her. And right at the end of this first scene, the daughter gets help for her mom. And what ends up happening is that her husband steps on her hand and causes her nerve damage and a lot of pain in her hand and loss of movement. And going into present day, she is working two jobs. She doesn't have a place to live. She's pretty much been living in a hotel with her two daughters, and she has to drop off her daughters to her abusive ex husband's house every weekend due to custody. Now, the ex husband wants Sandra to come back, but she does not want that because she's scared of what will happen to her and her family if she lets him back into her life. So obviously, now that she's out, she doesn't want to. And she feels so stuck. She feels like she can't get out of the hole that she's dug. Not that she's dug, but that was dug for her. And she works for this woman who she works for this woman who she cleans her house for. But this woman also knew her mother because she cleaned the house, the same house for the same employer. And so the elderly woman who Sandra is house is cleaning. I'm so sorry, my brain's a little scrambled today. She decides to lend Sandra $35,000 to build her own home and the land to do it. That is amazing. And Sandra felt so ashamed for trying to ask that money because, in a way, she didn't feel like she could, like, it was worth it. Like, she felt like she was so stuck and that she was so scared to ask for help. And when she finally got the help, it was like so relieving to her. And slowly she builds this house. Okay. And in a way, Sandra starts growing from herself and her traumas because she is she has severe trauma from her ex-husband and post-traumatic stress disorder because of what happened to her. And she starts building this house, and in a way she's starting to open up to other people and become close with them in order to help build this house for her and her daughters. And the husband's like, well, this isn't a good idea. This isn't safe. I want my children. I want you back. And in a way, from what I remember from like common knowledge, is that a husband that is abusive will always be kind and courteous to the woman that he is in love with. And then once he comes back into her life for a little while, he starts to become abusive again. So that is what Sandra is trying to prevent. And throughout the whole movie, she has conversations with her employer who owns the house and the land that she's going to be who owns the house that she's cleaning and the land that she's going to be using to have her own home in. And it's a really difficult, it's kind of hard to explain the idea of the whole movie, because the movie is all about Sandra growing herself and learning to be happy with the people that she's with. And for her, as she's starting to ask more and more help and more people are coming into her life, she becomes more terrified because she's shameful of asking for help. And there are so many people who don't want to ask for help. And I'm definitely one of those people. I only want to ask for help if absolutely necessary. And it is something I was kind of I've been taught by my family that, you don't ask for help unless you absolutely need it. But for me, it's always been, well, I don't want to ask for help at all for anything. If I can do everything, I will. And that is not the greatest mentality of mine. And I acknowledge that. And it's definitely the same mindset that Sandra has, is because, well, she's been struggling already so much. She wants to be able to succeed on her own and not have any help, because it feels like, oh, I'm just taking stuff from people. I don't have any reason to. It's not worth it. I'm not worth it. And it's this whole abuse pattern from her ex-husband that spirals her further and further and further. And Sandra finally snaps out of it when her youngest daughter was scared to go to her dad's house because she saw what happened to Sandra that day when she was beaten and her hand got stepped on by her ex-husband. And Sandra decides not to let her daughter go, but it turns into this whole custody battle about, like, the girls got like hurt a little bit on the construction site where the house was being built. And the husband was contesting that her youngest daughter, did not want to stay with her dad. And Sandra stood up to the judge and told her what actually happened, in that her youngest daughter saw everything in a closet that was barely peeping open, where the dad was abusing his mom, and she had never seen that before. So in a way, she also had those traumas and past, and it's the fear of having things passed down from generation to generation that always is the struggle. I feel like is a lot of the struggle with mental health. I have my own issues with mental health. I don't want to clarify on them, but I'm always scared of having it passed down to somebody in the future, and that I don't want anyone to have to take that on or have to deal with it, because it's tough. It's not easy to deal with a mentality that isn't healthy, that isn't sharp. And now that I realize you can't really think that way, because everyone's always going to end up having something. And I feel like even the people who are the most stable are the ones who are people who are just as broken as we are. And there's no right or wrong way to live. It's just you live. And that's the people who do matter, the ones who are going to speak up. I chose to do this podcast because it is a way for me to speak up in a way that makes me feel comfortable. I have a hard time looking people in the eye and being able to say something and have a good rebuttal. I kind of more close up because I don't want to say anything. I'm scared. And this podcast is a way for me to say something and not have my mind battle. It's just, you say it. And Sandra's going through the exact same thing. She spends time with these people and slowly learns, oh, well, I can just say what I want to say, and have it be accepted and perceived as, well, this is good. Well, okay, great. And there is this warmth and family that Sandra gains by the end of this. I would say that this show, this movie is more than what people really perceive it to be. Is that, sure, it's about shame and about mental health, but it's also about the idea of of welfare and the I guess the issues with the system. That, I'm so sorry, I knocked it over, so you guys will hear a little bit something in your ears. Sandra, when she tries to ask for help from welfare to pay for this self-building project, they don't want to help her. They will keep giving her rent allowance, but they will not help her with the house, which is a way for her to get out of the system. Now, I never really understood why that was the case, because in a lot of social welfare, you have in a lot of social welfare, you have the idea of, oh, well, these people just want help and they only want to do this and this. And that from Roger Ebert and his herself review, he says that they don't want any help and that they just want to stay in the system. And his review that came out this year, 2021, says that, well, it highlights the discrepancies in the social and welfare systems and why they are so difficult to deal with. And for me, I'm fortunate enough not to have ever been in a social welfare system, but I know a lot of people who have, and that it's not easy. It's not easy for any of them to be living paycheck to paycheck and having a hard time affording books and eating and having a lot of struggles. So I can only see that from as a person from the outside, and that I don't know anything about it, and that I take this issue very seriously. But that the people who are in these struggles deserve a chance to leave the system rather than be stuck in it. And the only way people, I feel like this is the way the system works. And this is from stuff from like CNBC, CBC. They have a lot of different videos, documentaries. There's so many. But a lot of the common knowledge is that with the welfare system, once people get into it, unless they can get a job that pays very well, they'll never leave the system. They will stay in they will stay in the welfare system and food stamps until they can earn a higher paying job. And for a lot of people, that's not easy. It takes years and years and years. And sometimes people never make it there. They end up dying, they end up passing away before that happens. And I find that as a total social injustice that we can't afford that we can afford to give people food stamps, but we can't afford to give people a chance to live their own lives and have like job training, to have their own mobile homes, to have maybe like a tiny house that costs a lot less money than welfare. But people don't want it. And I don't understand the reason why. There is there's more good being done with that and more resources that could be taken from things that we aren't using to these to people who are homeless, to people who are on food stamps, who are on the poverty line, that have kids that that want to be successful, need to be successful so that they can help their families flourish and grow. And it's hard because the income systems that we have is that if you are born into a middle class family, you will likely stay as a middle class person when you grow up. And same thing for people who are poor. More people who grow up in poverty more likely are to stay in poverty than to get out of the system. And that is really difficult. There are opportunities for them, like going to a high end university, which there are plenty of people who end up going to an Ivy League and end up earning a middle class salary or like an upper middle class salary. and soon are able to afford the ability to give their families the things that they need. But at the same time, it isn't fast enough. It isn't the change that we really need. It is the change that only gives so many people a solution. It and everything else that we've been doing, I feel, is a band-aid. There are lots of organizations that are doing amazing jobs and that help a lot of people, like Give 365. If you guys want to take a look at that organization, they give, if I remember the organization correctly, they give like $2,000 a month to certain families that are under their list to help them pay for essentials. And this is for COVID-19 as we are in right now. And that's and this is an amazing organization that I really encourage you guys to go donate to, Give 365. If it's not the correct organization, I'm really sorry. I don't remember the exact name, but Give 365 is the one I remember the most correctly. And I'm just going to tell you, if it's not the right one and you think and if it looks scammy, like it doesn't look like there's actual reputable, I guess, evidence that they actually donate to these people, please do not donate to them. Donate to any organization that is really helping families right now in the need of COVID, or in any cause that you believe in. Like I believe in breast cancer, or I believe in helping kids who are sick, like with St. Jude's. Totally donate to who you want and do it in inspiration of this video if you can. That herself, Sandra, she got the help that she needed, but it wasn't from the systems. It was all from other people. And to me, I think other people and their kindness and their warmth are what keep the world going. And that Sandra, she gets the chance to grow and to have a family more than what she had, more than what she had with her ex-husband, but that she can have it with her two young daughters, her friends, and not her blood family, but her family by choice. Well, that has been another episode of Colleague and Circumstances. Thank you guys so much for watching. This episode is definitely one that I just had to kind of go off the top of my head. It's just a lot of what I believe in, a lot of my personal thoughts and emotions, and that this review reflects purely my own responses, and also one review that I did get the chance to read by Robert I got to say it again. Roger Ebert, and his herself review that was released this year, 2021. And his view is very similar to my own, so I really wanted to take a look at his review and make sure that I add some of his ideas, such as the ideas of social welfare and also shame and the toll on people. He is an amazing reviewer. Please go check Roger Ebert out, and his last name is spelled Ebert. And yeah, I hope you guys liked this episode. This has been another episode of Colleague and Circumstances. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.